Whew. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I wasn't even going to touch on this topic, but I think it's important. Trump and the interview with the National Association of Black Journalists. And it was some things that okay, if my internet keep messing up, I'm going to have to stop this. And then I'm just going to have to do it off the phone because I don't need to go in and out and in and out. But there were a few things that disturbed me in this interview. And now I understand why women have a problem with Trump because he's a man. God created a hierarchy. It's God, man, woman, child. The man is the head of the household. And because Trump is a man's man, black women and other women have a problem with that. If the and if it does it again, I'm just gonna stop this. But women have a problem of how the man is the head of the household and should be the provider. That's the way things are. That's not the way things are now. But that let me move some. Now am I froze? Am I froze? All right, let me make sure. Because this is important. And from listening to that, I realized that's the problem. That's the problem that women have with him because he's a man's man. I love men. I don't want no weak man. I don't want no man that's gonna cow down to whatever I say. And black women have that problem as well as other women. This is not a black or white issue. However, we are talking about the interview with the National Association of Black Journalists. But women in general have a problem with a man's man, especially if they from a younger generation, I believe. God, man, woman, child. And we are so out of order. We are really so out of order. And this is why women have a problem with Trump because he is a man. He a man first. So I'm gonna get off into this, and the black journalist was hostile to him because even in the workplace, the way that she started this interview and how she talked Trump. First off, he was the president. Just like if you at your job, you're not going to just talk to your boss, your manager, any kind of way. Why? Because you need your job. There's a level of respect that comes to the title: a supervisor, a manager, a VP, a president. There's a level of respect. Whether you like the man or not, whether you like your boss or not, there's a level of respect that comes with the position. Point blank, period. Because I know not all of us like our supervisors, our managers, or whoever we employed by. We don't, you know. Some of us don't, but there still is a level of respect that comes with the position and the title. So I'm gonna start this off. I wasn't gonna talk about it, but it needs to be talked about. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. All right, here we go.
But also to help voters understand the choices that they face in a consequential and historic election year. NABJ has partnered with PolitiFact to fact check this conversation in real time. You can access that feed on social media using the hashtag NABJFactCheck. Again, the hashtag is NABJFactCheck. We have a lot to get to, and we do not want to waste any time. Bring out the former president of the United States, the Republican nominee for president, former President Donald Trump. Thank you. How are you? How are you? Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour. People did not think.
Okay, this thing keeps going in and out, and I'm getting pissed off because it's so important on this, and I don't want to lose my audience. Low. Okay.
It was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Now, this is the first question out of the gate to a former president. He got her together. He really did. But my thing is, there's a level of respect that comes with the office and the title. Whether we like the man or not, whether you like your supervisor, your manager, or, even with police, whether you like them or not, whether you like whoever you're dealing with that's over you, there's a level of respect that comes with the position. That was awful. And the tone in her voice, it gives to the angry Black woman. And this is what people think of Black women, the angry Black woman. And this is how they look at us. And she went right into the angry Black woman. Mm-mm. But this is how they think of, because we portray this. If we not twerking, if we not ratchet, we angry. And I'm not saying we have a lot of things to be angry about. Yes, we do. We do. As it relates to what's going on in this country, how we've been treated, since we have a lot, but there is a level of respect and another way of doing things. But he got her together. And when you're dealing with a man that has it going on, any man that has it going on, there's a level of respect that should go with that. And he's a man's man. And if you meet a man's man, he deserves that respect, whether you like him or not.
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically, black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to, just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something.
Mr. President, I would love if you could answer the question on your rhetoric and why you
I have
believe
answered the
that
question. Best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including...
Now you late. I'm on time. And of course, he always on time. He wasn't on colored people time. And I'm talking to myself on that. We need to do better with our time. And I'm talking to myself as well, because I'm always on colored people time. Always. But he was the former president. And to show up late and he there with Secret Service, come on. Come on, Trump.
Republicans on Capitol Hill have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who was the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words.
then. Would you give me a definition?
DEI.
Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She is always identified as a Black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but...
And that's a lie. She has not always claimed to be Black. She's a chameleon. She's Black when it's convenient. And she's an AKA, which my grandmother was an AKA. And I understand that her sorority sister should promote her. And that's her sorority. I get that. She has not always claimed. She's the chameleon. She's Black when it's convenient. Her mother is Indian. Her father is Irish Jamaican. Not Black. Not a fundamental Black American. A FBA. Foundational Black American. No, she's not. She's not a descendant of slavery. Well, neither am I, but I'm just saying. Awful question. He get her together.
She obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you ask. Continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
I really don't
have
know.
said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that.
Well, you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And
He shut her down, didn't he? He don't have to. He cannot be controlled, and that's why the establishment, the powers that be, are so afraid, because they can't control him. Now, of course, some things they will control him, and during that attempt on his life, to me, that was a warning that this is what can happen to you if you step out of pocket. That's my opinion. He got her together. She couldn't even give the definition of DEI. D Diversity, equity, inclusion, which is some BS. It took place of affirmative action that was overturned by the Supreme Court. You know what I mean? And we didn't even benefit from affirmative action. White women benefited from it. The Asian community really benefited from it as far as getting it into college. It had Mexicans, it helped everybody but black folk. So now they have this farce, and I'm gonna get into a thing I started writing about DI, the hypocrisy and the conspiracy behind that BS. Okay.
the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen.
Oh, hey, I done went live now. I'm live now, so I just called to tell you I love you very much, but I'm live talking about this Trump interview, so I'll call you back, or just come on the live and you could just listen. I got two people in the room. Okay, love you back. Bye. Oh shoot, let's get back into it. Sorry about that.
You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
And what is the problem with him saying black jobs? They are taking your jobs. The immigrants, the migrants, the elite, they're taking everybody's job. They're taking union jobs. They are taking your jobs. They're taking Americans' jobs. Point blank, period. Black job.
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has it.
All right.
And
Mr.
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion.
And not only that, they putting them in your neighborhood. Chicago, New York. They're putting them in your neighborhood. They're not in wealthy communities. Staten Island got them the hell out of there. Them Italians did. But they're in your communities. Let's talk about that. They taking your housing. They getting money every month. They paying their rent.
Millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar. She's done a horrible job. These people are coming into our country and they're taking black jobs and Hispanic jobs. And frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions.
And all that is a fact. Let me see if you want to come up. Let me put the link in here. Hold on. If anybody want to come up, I'm learning how. Okay, that's the link if you want to come up.
Of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing, as we discussed, is from jails, they're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down, and our crime rate is going to be a disaster.
And that's a fact. El Salvador president, he locked up so many of the MS-13, crime rate almost at zero. Venezuela, because of this election, they cutting up over there as they should, because Maduro, he did rig that election because he shouldn't have won. He didn't win. Yeah, that crime rate is down because they all here. They all here. And our wording, our women, robbery, theft, they doing everything. Everything. I have a video on here called The Migrant Mayhem that they're creating.
I want to get into how you address some of the issues with Black communities. And I say that plural because we live in communities of color that are different. We're not all the same. We don't vote the same. We don't think the same.
Sure.
It's not monolithic. So as you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts. And this is the weight of the inflation on this country right now. The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single Black moms, when you look statistically. Yeah. How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the Black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, this woman was unable to get the right equipment. But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word. It's very, but I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation is a country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, more than that, it's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young Black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy it because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country, and it's destroying the Black community probably as much
or more than any. What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way, just if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls. And then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst debates in history. And his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, let's keep going and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight, a prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing well. You say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him, and now we have to steer toward it. But ultimately, it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient heating. Environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the black worker, the black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr. President, can I ask you another question
Yes.
that is also impacting Black Americans?
And that's very clear now. Good.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed Black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You said police would get immunity for prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But again,
Are they going to be charging the officer? I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend, they had 117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So can you get a little more specific back to the immunity question? Who would make those
Well, right now, for the most part, people are protected by their unions, by their police unions, or by their police departments. But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime, or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
You
an
go
innocent
after
mistake?
somebody, and it's a very close call, and it's very dangerous. And they have the policeman's life, and woman, is a very difficult thing, because sometimes you have less than a second to make a life and death decision, and sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
So I want to follow up really quickly. I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people
Facts.
that have weaponized our justice system. I've been prosecuted. I just won.
And he not lying, because Kamala Jezebel, she met with Fonnie Willis. She was meeting with Jack Smith. Oh my God, what is the other Letitia James? She called them to the White House. They did weaponize the DOJ. That's a fact, whether you want to believe it or not.
The big case in Florida, everyone said that was the biggest case. That was the most difficult case. And I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except much worse. I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't president at the time. And he had 3 years worth of documents. And they ruled that he was incompetent, and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial, and yet he can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but they released him on the basis that he was incompetent. They said
Facts.
he had no memory, and he was a nice old guy, but he had no memory, and so, therefore we're not going to prosecute him.
Facts.
I won the case, and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it. George
extensively, sir. I'd love to move over on to
I didn't
different
notice
topics
you
now.
do any publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where
Sir,
I
if
have
you
a
don't mind, I'd
hostile
love to,
judge.
we have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different
No,
topics.
excuse you.
if we
You're the
can.
one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
Come on, Trump.
If we can move on now to the state of the race, sir, I want to get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said in the past. He said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before you picked him to be your running mate? And do you agree with it?
JD Vance came out and said that quote is from 2021, and he came out and he explained why he said that, we have so many other things going in the community. To me, it would seem like they had an opportunity of asking. We have a plethora of issues, that there's other questions that could have been asked that relate specifically to the Black community. Economic growth. What's your plan for economic growth? Empowerment zones. It's a plethora of questions that could have been asked other than about JD. Now that's my opinion.
No, I know this. He is very family oriented, and he thinks family is a great thing. That doesn't mean he thinks that if you don't have a family, it's not. I know people with families. I know people with great families. I know people with.
And another thing, JD Vance came from nothing. His mother was a heroin addict. He came from nothing, came from Appalachia. Nothing. And he made something of himself. His story is remarkable, and it's in his book that was a bestseller. So based on that, I understand why he chose JD Vance, because of his story.
Very troubled families, and I also know people with no families. They didn't meet the right person. Things happen. You go through life, you don't meet the right person.
But he's not just talking about families here. He also
some
says
of those
that people that don't have children should get less votes than
That's
those
all right.
that do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Is that your
And then they cut the man off. He can't even finish his sentence. I got that problem, and I got to do a lot better because I do cut people off. I got that problem. But at the same time, let the man answer the question.
I think I'm speaking for him too. He strongly believes in family, but I know people with great families. I know people with not great families that don't have a family. And the people without the family are far better. They're superior in many cases, okay? He's not saying they're not. What he's saying is that he thinks the family experience is a very important thing. It's a very good thing. But that doesn't mean that if you grow up and you grow older and you don't meet somebody that would be wonderful to meet and would have been good, that's a bad thing. He's not saying that. My interpretation, you'll have to ask him actually, but my interpretation is he's strongly family oriented, but that doesn't mean if you don't have a family, there's something wrong with it.
Just one last point and then we'll move on. Just one of the bedrock principles of American life is one person, one vote. Senator J.D. Vance has suggested that someone who has children should have more votes than a person who does not have children. I just want to be clear here. Is that the position of your campaign?
Well, no, but it's not something I've ever heard before. I can tell you this. Now you have illegal aliens coming into our country, many from prisons and many from mental institutions, and they want to give them votes. I don't think they should have votes. They came into our country illegally, and they're taking the vote away from all of the people in this room that have been here a long time, that have worked hard, that in many cases, and you'll see this happening, if I'm not elected, you're going to see it happening. If I am, you're not going to have any problem. But you're going to see it happening a long time. You're going to see the people in this room and people outside of this room are going to be losing their jobs to people that have come into this country illegally.
Mr. President, can we stay with just kind of the state of the race right now? Because I felt like that vice president question, candidate question was right in there with that. So let's talk about JD Vance for a little bit. He's had some stumbles out of the gate. I don't know if you're hearing what we hear in reporters, but it's been a tough couple of weeks for him. Why did you choose JD Vance?
Why did I?
Why did you choose him? And I'm having a hard time hearing too. Everybody out there can, but it's hard.
I'll tell you why. I chose him because he's a very strong believer in work and the working man and woman, and especially the working man and woman who have been treated very unfairly, because you have many of them in this room. But you have many of those people that were treated very unfairly. They worked very hard and they were treated unfairly. He wrote the book that became a bestseller. The movie became a smash hit. He's a very smart guy without the benefit of having a family that has contacts, like a father that was well connected. He got into Yale Law School. He graduated in 2 years from Ohio State, summa cum laude. I mean, you take a look at his career, an amazing career. He started off at a level with a difficult family situation, very difficult with the mother and the father and everything else. He ends up going to Yale Law School and was one of the top students, became the head of the law journal. I mean, that's an amazing thing. He was in the military with great distinction for 4 years, got out, went into business, became successful in business, very successful in business, actually. Did public offerings and other things.
So what he's saying, he's smart and he came from nothing. That's his story.
I have to believe in that. I mean, he's somebody that was born in a rough situation. Most of the people know that situation because it was very well documented in his book. And I have a lot of respect for somebody that can get into Yale and become one of the best students in Yale, that meets a young woman at Yale who was also outstanding, and they get married, they have a beautiful family, but he had he's made himself an amazing life. He then goes to Ohio, lives in Ohio, and he had my endorsement. That helped. But he wins the Senate. He becomes a United States Senator. So he's a United States Senator. So Harris, like I respect you for your success, I respect people for their success.
The reason I asked the question is because the last time you and I sat and talked was the day that you were shot. We've been together for much of that day. You left to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, and we didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
And
I'm
2 days
sorry.
after that,
I cannot understand your microphone.
I know
so
it is really hard for me
I
to
mean, it's
understand.
just I can understand you perfectly.
Because she's closer.
I can understand you, but I can't understand Harris.
I have a few more questions.
Because of the distance, and the mics are really in lousy shape, but I cannot understand
So,
you're saying.
so what I wanted to say was the last time we spoke, you said some words that were prophetic because I asked you who you wanted to choose for vice president.
Yeah.
And you said normally it really wouldn't matter what they would, you choose somebody that you think has a future, that sort of thing. But you said these words 3.5 hours before an attempted assassination on your life. You told me that bad things happen, Harris, and that's why this decision is important this time. Bad things happen. You said it twice. When you look at JD Vance, is he ready on day one?
Does he what?
Ready on day one, if he has to be.
I've always had great respect for him, and for the other candidates too. But I will say this, and I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact. You have 2 or 3 days where there's a lot of commotion as to who, like you're having it on the Democrat side, who it's going to be. And then that dies down, and it's all about the presidential pick. Virtually never has it mattered. Maybe Lyndon Johnson mattered for different reasons of what we're talking about, not for vote reasons, but for political reasons, other political reasons. But historically, the choice of the vice president makes no difference. You're voting for the president, and you can have a vice president who's outstanding in every way, and I think JD is. I think that all of them would have been, but you're not voting.
I'm gonna skip along because I got stuff to do.
And I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir. Very rude. That was a nasty.
Wait a minute. Let me go back.
Everybody wanted it. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted abortion, brought back. They didn't want Roe v. Wade in the federal government. They wanted it everybody.
But the
wanted
majority
it
of
back.
Americans oppose
Excuse me.
Roe v. Wade being
They,
overturned.
they
Most
don't know
polls have showed
about
that,
this.
sir.
Right now, they're voting. It brought it back to the states. Now, I happen to believe in the three exceptions. Ronald Reagan believed with rape, incest, life of the mother. I do. I think most people do. I think most Republicans do also. But if you take a look, right now they're doing, it's an amazing thing. Out of the federal government, it's in states, and people are voting. And I will say, Ohio is, let's call it a more liberal version, has been approved. Kansas, the same thing, a little bit surprising to a lot of people. But the people are now voting, and it's taking this issue that's been going on for 52 years and has torn our country apart, and it's giving it to the people to vote on. And they're voting. And many states have already voted. Others are in the process of voting. And it's bringing it back to the people and a vote of the people. And it's not at all radical. And again, you have to follow your heart. I happen to believe in the three exceptions. Most people believe in the three exceptions. Most Republicans believe in the exceptions. But they don't want to see an abortion in the 9th month or the 8th month. Almost everybody agrees to that. And they certainly don't want to see, in the case of the governor of Virginia, the former governor, I might add, who said, we set the baby aside and then we decide what to do, meaning, what do we do?
He did say that. He did say that.
That's a radical, horrible position. And some people want that. I don't want it. Most people don't.
Thank you. Can I just pivot really quickly to another question about, you brought up health, Harris. You're an active man. We see you golfing all the time. But if you win, you'll still be president at 82, which is older than Biden is right now.
But not mentally. Look, mentally.
Here's a question.
He's shot. But most people.
Would you consider?
Most people. I know many people in their 80s and their 90s that are in great shape. Some of our greatest leaders. You look at throughout the world history, the greatest leaders, some of the greatest leaders in the world were in their 80s.
But here's the question. Would you consider stepping down if you felt that your health was declining? Or would you?
Oh, absolutely.
And who would?
I think I'd know.
How would you make that decision?
I think I'd know. Look, if I came onto a stage like this and I got treated so rudely as this woman treated
Oh my goodness.
me, and I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir. Very rude. That was that wasn't a question. She didn't ask me a question. She gave a statement. That wasn't
Exactly.
I repeated your statement, sir, actually. You said you would. You would.
Oh, absolutely. If I thought that I was failing in some way, I want people to be shocked. I'll go a step further. I want anybody running for president to take an aptitude test, to take a cognitive test. I think it's a great idea. And I took 2 of them and I aced them.
Well,
I took 2 of them. But let me answer.
Yeah.
I would like to have people running for president. And I don't mean because they're 75 or 85. I think anybody running, I'd like to do it. People say it's not constitutional. I would like to have something passed where you can do it. I think we should know. I mean, I've watched what's happened in the last couple of years under this gentleman, and our country is a mess. We have inflation. We have the millions of people falling in.
Yeah.
We have Afghanistan, which was the
Afghanistan was
most
awful.
embarrassing moment in the history
It
of our
was
country.
awful.
What he has done to our country, and her too, what they've done to our country, she has been a horrible vice president. She's considered the worst vice president.
Right. What has she done? Name one thing that this woman has done. What has she done? Nothing.
History of our
Mr.
country.
President, but would you consider taking the cognitive test?
Mr. President.
I would love to
And
do
make
it.
it public?
He just said he took 2 and he did. All right, let me.
Nobody died, but people died in
140
Minneapolis.
officers
You know,
were
people died in
assaulted that
Minneapolis,
day.
and nothing happens, and nobody ever talks, and nothing happens to those people. But you went after the J6 people with a vengeance, and I'll tell you what about the cops that were, and I'm all for the police, as you know, but what about the police that are ushering everybody into the Capitol? Go in.
Exactly.
What about that? Look,
exactly.
nothing.
And what about the FBI that was in plain clothes? They opened the gate. I watched it. They opened the gate. Pelosi admitted that she failed by not calling the National Guard. waited 3 hours. This was all planned. Facts.
Life. But you have people from Minneapolis, you have people just from 5 days ago in Washington, D.C. They were having fistfights and fighting with the police. They were spraying and destroying, they were desecrating our monuments in Washington, D.C. 5 days ago, and nothing happened to them. And you can't have two systems of justice. That's why they went after me as a political opponent, because they felt they could win without doing that. They're going to wear it abbreviated, but I have spent a lot of time on that. That's what they want. After the election, they won't care on my. I think they probably will, because the hatred is pretty deep. But they went after me as a political opponent. That's never happened in our country before, and it sets a terrible, terrible precedent.
Facts.
What do you do on day one if you win? What's your first thing?
What do? I close the border. Vetted, they have to be checked. So when you say, what do I do? That, and I drill, baby, drill. I bring energy way down. I bring.
Have a good day. I'm out. Leave a comment. Like the video.